Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Andrew, welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5. This is Football Saturday. Remember, football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Don't miss Liverpool versus Shrewsbury Town in the FA Cup this Sunday, live on Premier Sports. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming live as well. You can listen on News Talk, watch us on the Off the Ball digital and social channels. For Periscope on Twitter, at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app for iOS and Android. Search OTB Sports in your app store to download it now if you haven't already. Joined by Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent in studio. How are you, Dan?
I'm good, John.
FA Cup weekend. I'll be kind of watching with one eye on it, I suppose. I see Wes Hoolahan's on the bench for Cambridge against Newcastle, and Evan Ferguson on the bench for Brighton.
Yeah, I sort of half listened to your debate coming in about Shane, but it's actually become a bugbear of mine that every January it becomes a what happened to the magic of the FA Cup debate. You know what I mean?
Want to say differently about it then?
Well, it's not that I want to say anything differently. It's just like it's more a case of, like, there comes a point where people have to, and I love nostalgia, and we all love nostalgia on this show. We literally existed off nostalgia at the start of lockdown. But I think the more you continue to judge something by its past, you'll never get beyond that. It's that thing every year. It's like, here comes the FA Cup. Like, there are reasons why it's happened. Like, one of the big reasons why the FA Cup lost its standing was that the Christmas schedule is so important. And the Premier League is so important now. The club started to view that first week in January as a time to recharge the batteries and rest legs after that mad period. That sort of chipped away at the status a small bit. But, like, I just think, you know, there still is, like, it may never be what it was back in the day, but, like, it's not as bad as people make it out to be sometimes too. You know, we've had like Pádraig Hammond in recent years, but it's more maybe a reflection of how so much of the discourse around English football centres around the big 4 or 5 clubs, and that they're, you know, like, even I'm sure there's people who text us in, and this is a slight tangent, but it could be a talking point as much as anything. I'm sure there's people who text us in now all the time who are Nottingham Forest fans or Sheffield Wednesday fans, or, you know, there's a range of fans of different clubs, you know, whereas I sort of wonder, the kids now, and like, how many of them aren't supporting the handful of big clubs, you know? And maybe part of that the FA Cup gave you like a window into different clubs almost every year, and people would have latched on to them, like Coventry in 87 and stuff like that. Everything is so singular focused now, so we probably don't tap into as much the feeling that would exist maybe in places like, you know, Newport and sort of Preston and all these places that have big cup days that still mean a lot to them, financially mean a hell of a lot to them, but where it's been eroded is probably the mid-table Premier League clubs, and that's the issue. Good point.
53106. Sometimes the magic of the FA Cup can be linked to your own junior team. In 2006 I played for Slorgan Lakelands. We had a lot of Liverpool fans in the group. Both our teams got to the cup finals, 1 win, 1 loss. The energy from Liverpool's cup run fed into our own cup runs. And another one, we had a chat there with Shane Hannon before 3 from John and Dublin lads. I think you're getting nostalgia in the way of accuracy. Even back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, shocks are relatively rare. Big teams generally came through against the minnows. If you look at the semi-finals and finals, generally the best teams are there. If it might look weird now looking at Watford, Ipswich, Everton, Palace, but those years they're among the very top 3 or 4 teams in the country. What I would say is, John, that in 73 Sunderland, 76 Southampton, 80 West Ham won the cup as second division clubs. Doesn't happen now. It's generally the top 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, I see the point, but I think like there's something in that. Like, if you think of the 90s, like, I mean, Man United, Liverpool 96, like some of the big finals that people mentioned. Yes, you had Sunderland in 92, Millwall in 2004, was it?
Yeah.
You know, Hull in recent years. Like, I actually think across the decades, I do think I sort of would more so lean towards the texter that maybe back in the day there was a little bit more pronounced, but across the last 30 years I don't see a dramatic difference from one decade to the next. Like, you have sporadic shocks or a team getting to the final, but yes, the cream come to the top. Like, people talk about good final in Arsenal Liverpool, you know, sort of in the 2001 where Michael Owen scored the winner. Man United won the treble, so they were winning the FA Cup. You know, Arsenal, Newcastle were a great team at that time. So yeah, I think it's the top teams dominating the FA Cup isn't a relatively new phenomenon either.
Damien, Happy New Year. Hope you're well. And you were in a cup final for Palace in a few years ago against Man United. So does that hold a place in your heart still, or are you unsentimental about the whole thing?
No, absolutely. I was a huge fan of it. Growing up as a kid, it was always the one I watched on a Saturday afternoon. And it holds a massive place in my heart. And I love FA Cup weekend. I used to love it as a player as well. it was like a break from the league, the pressures of being in a relegation battle or chasing something or wherever you were in your league. So it was a nice welcome break, just to put on a new jersey with like a different, badge on the side of the FA Cup badge. I used to always notice that when it was part of it. But I think it's a great competition, and it still is,
Did you wear special suits or anything for the final, or not white suits?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah, absolutely. No, we had suits. Yeah, I think I still wear it on the Virgin show we're on. I'm sitting on the TV. I roll out some suits there, and people say that's lovely, and they're definitely club suits. I think a lot of ex-players still do that.
Just a wedding suit as well, Dame, or something. Is that on the road?
It's on everything. Anytime I need a suit, I just look into which to be honest with you, every time I put it on, I'm really happy that it still fits me. It's getting a little bit tighter now, in fairness. I have to have a little deep breath before I lock it up. But listen, it's a wonderful competition. It's brilliant, and I know, like, I was just in your chat there about nostalgia and stuff, but nostalgia takes time to build. We were obviously at a different age in the 90s where football was kind of, I suppose, in a child's mind or a young man's mind, more pure, and I suppose the way it's gone now, there's maybe people are a little bit cynical, and managers that are coming in. There's a lot of foreign managers and foreign players that might not hold the FA Cup in the same esteem as what we would have done as kids growing up, and the financial incentive of winning an FA Cup, believe me, is absolutely minimal. And I suppose a lot of people now would look at it and say, well, we could chase that, but if we lose a couple of games, we might get relegated or get drawn into a relegation battle. And club owners are obviously acutely aware that finances are very important, and it's difficult to prioritise a cup because your chances of winning it are very, very slim. But look, I was lucky enough to get to a final, and it was a day that'll live long in my memory.
And also the fact that you were ahead and you lost it. I mean, I'm sure the importance of it was illustrated in the fact that you must have been gutted, all of you, at full time in the dressing room.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really strange. I remember I got drug tested straight after the game, so I never actually got to go back into the dressing room. So I remember just being sat in a tiny little cubicle with Juan Mata, and I think it was Rojo, and the three of us were just sitting there, really awkward, like they had their medals around their neck. And there's just two random drug testers kind of stood in the room. So there was like five of us in a tiny little room, and I'm trying to make conversation with the two of them.
How did the small talk actually go in that scenario? Did you just sort of general comments about the game, or do you just talk about your summer plans? Like, where does that go?
I think they were just more like say to me, hard luck type of thing, But I think the two of them would just kind of speak to each other in Spanish. But I mean, they weren't elated, and that's probably one thing that, like, I when I left that room, I remember thinking, like, I know winning a trophy for them was hugely important, but I always got the sense that it would have mattered an awful lot more to me. They were sitting there, sitting there with the medals around their necks, as you said, they're probably just, what time's your flight tomorrow type of thing, you know what I mean? And it was just kind of like, and I was kind of sitting there going, lads, like, you guys got a medal around your neck. I'd give my left arm right now to have that, I mean, that would have been the biggest achievement for me. And but look, obviously that's no slight on them or anything like that. They're used to, Juan Mata's won a World Cup and stuff, you know what I mean? So that's just kind of the context that I was trying to put it in. But, I was so close to it. But look, it is what it is. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, I suppose it's funny though. It's true, you can't be cynical about that, because you had the classic case of it last year where Leicester won the FA Cup but then missed out on the Champions League place. And I'm sure we probably spoke about it here, and would have been discussions of which would they prefer. But I'm guessing, I mean, some of those Leicester players, of course, won the Premier League a couple of years ago, but you'd imagine for some of the other ones, it's the classic one in 5-10 years' time. What are they going to remember? They're going to remember that day at Wembley, surely. That as a standout event in their lives.
Yeah, will do. But just from a financial point of view and an ownership point of view, a lot of clubs, Leicester are owned by a very wealthy family. So, the financial aspect wouldn't have been huge for them. But for most clubs that are kind of run on a budget, especially in the Premier League, and, believe it or not, there are clubs in the Premier League that are run on tight budgets. A lot of managers and owners won't want to take the risk of losing Premier League football. That was probably never a risk for Leicester City. But obviously getting in the Champions League financially would have been brilliant for them. But I think they're in a position where I think the FA Cup would have mattered more to them. Like you said, you get to put a trophy in a trophy cabinet. But I'd say there's only probably about 6 or 7 clubs really that are in that type of bracket.
And you speak about Leicester there, Damien. Yuri Tielemans scored the goal in that final, and he scored again now against Watford, 1-0.
Yeah.
The Foxes lead in that third round match from the penalty spot as well, Yuri Tielemans. So 1-0 to Leicester against Watford. Millwall 1, Crystal Palace 2 as a result. Barnsley 0, Barrow 0 at the moment. It's Boreham Wood 1, Wimbledon 0, Kidderminster 0, Reading 0. It is Newcastle 0, Cambridge 0, Wes Hoolahan on the bench. Peterborough 0, Bristol Rovers 0, Port Vale 0, Brentford 0. Also goalless in the matches between QPR and Rotherham, West Brom and Brighton, and Wigan and Blackburn. The team that beat you a few years ago, Juan Mata, still at Man United, Damien. Where'd you begin? I know you had strong views on Ole and everything. What is your assessment of what is happening at Man United this week with them losing to Wolves and Ed Woodward now stepping down after 8 years in charge? $1 billion spent on transfers, but the currency that matters is the Premier League, and they didn't win it under him.
Yeah, look, it's an absolute mess of a football club at the moment. I don't think anyone would disagree with that statement. Look, whatever your feelings on the club, I still stand firm that I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the man who was ever going to sort out those problems. You need an extremely strong manager to come in and try and iron out all those differences. And Ole was never the guy that was ever going to do that. You know, I think the criticism that tactically he wasn't good enough. Obviously the new guys come in hasn't changed the whole pile, but that doesn't. I know a lot of people are saying that it's the players' fault. Changing the manager is going to do nothing. I think changing a manager was important. But you got to get the right manager, and it was always risky, or they're always running a risk of bringing another guy in and not really changing it, But the whole philosophy of the football club is now what needs to change, and you need an extremely strong manager to come in and do that. I'd liken it a little bit to like when Jurgen Klopp came in at Liverpool. I know Liverpool weren't in anywhere near of a mess, but they were coming off the kind of the Roy Hodgson kind of era where they were a little bit lost, and you still see pictures of some of the teams that started, maybe 7 or 8 years ago at Liverpool, and you kind of you forget that the likes of Shelvey and Ricky Lambert were Liverpool players once, and I think Man United are kind of there now, and they need a manager with the similar charisma and principles as Jurgen Klopp to come through the door, and personality, because it's going to take a huge personality to grab that club by the scruff of the neck and iron out all the differences off the pitch, and then start putting the things in place on the pitch for them to get back to where they're going to be. There's a lot of problems to be sorted out there, and I suppose initially, or first of all, it has to come from the ownership, that they have to recognise that what they've been doing the last number of years, however their recruitment process has been, however their kind of director of football, whether he has any real say or not, or the overall plan of the football club, I just get a feeling that there's 4 or 5 departments that are on 4 or 5 different pages, right from the ownership to the director of football, through to the first team, through to the academy. I think they're all probably working off different blueprints, and it's starting to show now. But I suppose first and foremost, the owners have to recognise the mess that they've created. And I suppose the one thing you can't criticise them for is they've spent money. They've just spent it really, really poorly. It's just almost been like, just if you throw enough, mud at a wall, some of it will stick. And unfortunately, not a lot of it has. But now they're caught in a really difficult situation where you've got a lot of players who are earning money on long-term contracts that won't get that money elsewhere. So I know a lot of people have been reading online, people saying things like, we need to clear out the dead wood. It's not as easy as that. It would cost them an absolute fortune to pay up the players and get rid of them, because even if you're selling a player for like 10 million quid, the club might have to pay him out 5 million of the remainder of his contract. If he just says, I'm happy to stay there, and you need to clear out dead wood, it's very, very hard, especially if that player is going to have to take a pay cut to leave the club, because in reality there's players earning money at Manchester United that they're not going to get it anywhere else, literally nowhere else. Nobody's going to pay them that kind of money, so it can be very, very difficult to move those players on. But they do need to clean house. And I suppose that's what this manager was brought in for in the long run, to steady things on the pitch and then put the infrastructure in place off the pitch. And it's going to take time. It's going to take an awful lot of time and several transfer windows. But I suppose, like anyone with any problem, the first step is admitting that you have a problem and that you can't just cut corners or take shortcuts, in a way to get out of it, because you just can't.
I'm going to look through some of the flops here, Damien. Juan Mata, you could argue is one of them. Radamel Falcao.
Game was made from the FA Cup.
Yeah,
Nobody having a go at them.
Well, look,
they had some really deep conversations, John.
This is just business. Football Saturday is just business here. Radamel Falcao, Angel Di Maria, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Morgan Schneiderlin, Alexis Sanchez, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Donny van de Beek. It doesn't, like Rangnick hinted when he got the job, Damien, that he might be interested in the permanent job, but you can't see that happening now. It doesn't seem that with all the leaks of 17 players wanting to leave, Ronaldo having a bonding lunch, not everybody turning up. Can you only sort a dressing room with a Klopp or a Guardiola type figure?
Well, first of all, what you need to do is and me and Joe spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, is culture is a huge thing. And Arteta at Arsenal is going through something similar. Where he had to try and change the culture of a football club, and it looks like that the sacrificing of the captain has really got everyone's attention. And I think that Manchester United, looking from the outside, I always think it takes 4 or 5 players to drive a culture at a football club in the changing room. And I don't know who the 4 or 5 that are driving the culture at Manchester United, but it's not good. They don't look like a cohesive unit. The leaders that are in charge aren't capable of leading. They're kind of disorganised. They're probably not disciplined themselves. When you look at someone like Aubameyang's issue at Arsenal, I mean, the manager is probably laying down the law to the squad. Things are changing. Discipline's important. Timekeeping, training, showing up ready to train. And then your captain shows up late twice. He had to. No, he would. By the way, it's not an easy decision for Arteta to make, because he would have incredible pressure from above, from the ownership, saying, you've put our highest paid player on 350 whatever thousand a week, or whatever the rumoured figure is supposed to be, is now not part of the squad. That is an incredible amount of money to be paying somebody to stay at home. And the owners will be on to him, because you have to understand that Aubameyang is an asset as well. And even if they do want to get rid of him, if he doesn't play football for a year, that price is going to be probably quarter of what he's actually worth. And plus you're going to have to then pay him up that situation I was talking about, that money, because Aubameyang is not getting that anywhere else. Manchester United got a lot of those players at Manchester United. So it's going to be very, very difficult, but the manager has to have some serious backbone now. He has to go in and he has to weed out the troublemakers. And I promise you, I've been in enough changing rooms, right from League Two right into the Premier League. I've been part of teams that have been promoted. I've been part of teams that have nearly been relegated. And it's always 4 or 5 people driving the culture. And if the culture is wrong, you have to weed out those players. They have to be moved on. They have to be dragged out. And it's almost, they're the players you want to pay up to leave your football club. And you get young guys in who are honest, who are hardworking, who want to do well for the football club. And what you find then is once you get rid of 4 or 5, you'll get 7, 8, 9, 10 that are kind of on the fence that will fall on your side. And the manager will have the instant respect of the players, and the players will respect the manager, and then you can begin the healing process at Manchester United. Did
you drive the culture as you grew older? Like, for example, at Palace, were you one of those 4 or 5 players, Damien?
Yeah, absolutely. Timekeeping is important, and people might say, "Oh, it's not massive," but it is. Once, like, a culture, a club, the culture can be everyone comes in. If you're supposed to be in at 9 o'clock in the morning, most people arrive at 5 to 9, and then the cafeteria or the canteen is full. People are reading newspapers, they're on their phones, they're drinking coffees. All of a sudden you see cliques of players sitting at certain tables, and it's a really fragmented changing room. And then all of a sudden, the fitness coach has to go in the canteen and drag players out of the canteen to get them to go in the gym to get ready to train. And that type of behaviour absolutely spills over into the performances on the pitch. Whereas if you're driving a culture where that's almost deemed not cool, if you know what I mean, to be going to the canteen. So we'd be in for 9 o'clock every morning. I'm not 8:15, the gym was full, because that came the place to be. Everybody was going in there. The work ethic was there. So most lads were in for 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they were in the gym at 8:15. Breakfast was done. You tell the chef that training starts at 10:30. Breakfast is finished at say 9:30. So if you're not in and have your breakfast finished, whereas a lot of clubs at times, the chefs are still handing out omelettes and making lunch or breakfast for people at 5 past 10 past 10. Fellas are just kind of finishing their play, putting their boots on and going out. And that's the kind of culture that you want to weed out. And if you can get 4 or 5 guys that, make sure people are in an hour and a half before they're supposed to be, and then they're there an hour and a half afterwards, that is what drives culture.
It's interesting, the And like Damo's talking about the dynamics of a dressing room, and he can talk about it, and we can't speak to that in the way that he can, but you certainly, I would certainly have an idea how journalism works, and when dressing rooms start to leak, like, it's generally a bad sign, that okay, at various times I'm sure there's been stuff coming out of Man City, maybe various bits. Did have Pep have some issues with Sterling and Klopp? I can't think of examples off the top of my head, but maybe people could fill them out. But when you saw this week the sheer volume of stuff, and it wasn't just, say, one reporter getting one piece of information, it seemed like there was just buckets of stuff coming out of Manchester United, out of the dressing room. The volume of stuff, some of them didn't know who Rangnick was. They did various bits about social gatherings and all these little things, and you're thinking, this is a problem, like, this is a real problem.
Who's leaking that? Is it agents, the players themselves?
I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, again, it's
generally
generally you'd be surprised if agents weren't involved in it, but like, he could have, ex-players, people. It's just the vibe, like, it's just the way it works. That, and you see this with sort of Ireland dressing rooms and places over the years. Like, it's, if there's some tensions internally, it tends to get out in the end. It may not necessarily get out like week to week, but you generally tend to hear it over time, and it can be through different avenues and different sources. But like, it's the speed at which the stuff seems to be coming out of Manchester United at the moment would suspect that there's multiple people involved. It's not just, say, one disenfranchised person. Like, often you could say there's someone who's wronged, or someone has their nose out of joint, and they can be malicious about it. But it's the sheer sort of volume of stuff coming out that, to me, is just like massive alarm bells. And even Rangnick himself, like, the sort of surreal aspect of it, that he's there speaking yesterday or the day before on TV, almost as though it was a bad thing that they didn't have a load of COVID cases, in the sense that they had too many players available. Like, everyone else is coping with sort of multiple absentees. You see Man City this week, you see Liverpool coping with at various stages over the last 2 weeks they've been missing loads of bodies. And even Rangnick is there in this bizarre situation of saying, well, players aren't happy that they're not playing. It's almost a shame they have all these players available at the moment. Like, it's just sort of warped sort of discussion to be engaging in, but not really denying that players aren't happy.
You'll have a huge problem with players that the club has been struggling for a long time, and you've a lot of players that haven't been given a chance. I don't think there's anything more demoralising for a player to be sitting on the bench watching the team lose week after week, lose finals, lose semi-finals, and it's been going on a long time. Now, I know they finished second last year, but that was more to the fact that Liverpool and Chelsea had their problems. We've seen them, both those sides are back on song as with Man City. But when a team isn't doing well and you can't get in it, when you see a midfield struggling in the way that Manchester United's are, and you're a midfield player, you are going into training and you're like, your soul is on the floor. You just can't. What's the point? You're going into training, you're thinking, I could be the best player every day for a year and I'm still not going to play. So you have no motivation to go in and do your job. You've no motivation to go in and train hard. You've no motivation to go in and be early, and to go in the gym, because you're like, it makes no difference. I'm never going to play. So then you're just speaking to your agent and you're saying to your agent, I need to leave. And then the agents are the ones that start leaking these stories about people want to leave. And I think there are a lot of players at Manchester United that haven't been given a fair crack at the whip, especially when the team has been struggling. Sorry to cut you off there, Dan.
No. Listen, you. I mean, do you want to tell us about any players that you suspected their agents of putting stuff out over the years? Obviously, don't do that, Damo. But would you be suspicious generally if stuff was coming out around your club? And I know Palace mightn't have experienced that as much, but would you be looking around the dressing room going, where's some of this stuff coming out of, if stuff was coming out?
Yeah, you could probably tell it's the players who are really unhappy and they want to leave, and that's what the agent's job is. The agent's job is to get that player out. But if the club is saying, look, he's not going, like say for instance, like Jesse Lingard, and I'm not saying at all that the leaks have come from him, but like he had an opportunity to go and play football at West Ham, and Man United didn't sell him. And now he's sitting around for 6 months, and he was probably told in the summer, look, if you come back, you're going to be back involved in the squad and you're going to get minutes. And he's got nothing. Donny van de Beek is another one. And those agents are probably phoning the director of football every day saying, can my player leave? Can my player leave? Can my player leave? He wants to leave the football club. And they're saying, well, no, not really. And then all of a sudden, that's when the real dark arts start coming, because we're in January now and these agents are trying to force the situation. And by the way, I'm not saying it was those two players. I don't know. But the players that want to get out, and they will leak stories to make Manchester United's life miserable, just to upset things to the point where the club have to start moving players on. And I didn't get that Rangnick rant yesterday about we almost have too many players. You have a 25-man squad. Everybody has a 25-man squad. It's capped at 25. So I don't understand this argument he was making. We have too many players. Everybody has 25 players, and he just keeps, well, him and the previous managers keep picking the same ones. But that's a demoralising part as a player, and you can transfer that to any job. And I know people at home will say, oh, well, if I was getting paid that money, I'd go in and train well. It's very, very hard. If you're going into work every day, whatever your line of work is, and you're like, working really, really hard and you're not getting any praise or recognition from your boss, it's going to be a demoralising place to go. Like if you're going into the Independent on Monday, Dan, and you're going in and you're working as hard as everybody else, but none of your articles are getting printed, and the other ones that are being printed are useless, you're going to be pretty annoyed, aren't you?
I'd have a few words, all right. Thankfully, I don't have that problem, Damien. But I was just gonna say though, isn't it strange that even though with Rangnick, like this thing, the new manager bounce, people always talk about the new manager bounce, and it's one of these sort of things. Like what even is it? What is it? Is it a reaction to the previous manager? Is it the freshness, the fresh voice? But it's just strange that there really hasn't been that at all. I always remember you speaking before, Damien. It might have been actually before Stephen Kenny came in, but you were speaking about how that first impression is so important. The first couple of training sessions, the first couple of speeches, like that's when a group will judge someone. Like, do you suspect, looking from the outside, that maybe the pitch of that he hasn't got that right? Because there really has been no visible reaction,
Absolutely.
even a short-lived one.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. He's gone. Like when a new manager comes into a football club, it is a fresh start for everybody. So the players that haven't been involved are now thinking, finally, the previous guy never played me. Now I'm going to have an opportunity. So the level in training goes up and everybody's standing to attention and everybody works really hard. But then the first couple of teams are picked and he's doing pretty much exactly what the other fella did. All of a sudden, all those players like Donny van de Beek and Lingard and whatever else are thinking, well, what's the point in even being here now? I'm stuck, resigning myself to another couple of years of just sitting on this bench. But the pitch there, what you said of when Rangnick came in is on the money. I think he's probably come in and thought to himself, okay, I'm going to possibly lay down the law to these guys. I'm going to impose my way on these players. He might have just gone abroad it the wrong way, where all the players now just looking at him thinking, nah, I know he's changed training times, and I know a lot of the German managers like to train at the time of whatever game they're playing is. So if they're playing at 12:30 on a Saturday, they'll train at 12:30 in the build-up to the game, and then for Champions League games they'll train at night time. That's something that some coaches do just to condition the body to getting used to playing at that time. And obviously he's just put a lot of people's nose out of joint, and it's a delicate balancing act, because you can't go in there and do what Solskjaer did and be everybody's friend. You got to remember, Solskjaer went in after Mourinho and everybody was just demoralised because Mourinho had just kind of obviously lost the plot and was very hard on a lot of players, and it became quite a toxic atmosphere. When you've had that and someone like Solskjaer walks through the door, who all of a sudden is putting his arm around you, he's sitting down having breakfast with you, he's calling you in the office telling you you're the best player under the sun, and he wants to get you back to the type of player that you were. Now Rangnick's come in and he's thinking, well, these guys have had it soft. There's been no accountability at this football club. I'm going to come in, I'm going to lay down the law, motivate these players. And it looks like the players have all just shrugged their shoulders and just said, you're not that guy. And that's why it just looks like much of a muchness. But when somebody with personality and charisma walks through the door, your first meeting, you just know straight away. You're like, oh my God, this guy's got something. I could tell you stories about, I went through several managers, a lot more than several, lots of managers in my career, and I could tell after the first meeting, you're just looking at some managers and you can just see that they haven't got that confidence, that charisma, that belief in themselves when they're talking to a group of footballers. For instance, like say when Sam Allardyce got the job at Crystal Palace, first meeting, everyone's sat waiting for him. He just walks in and immediately he just owns the room. Everybody in the room just goes, okay, he's the guy. And he just speaks with authority, and he's very, very clear what he's saying, and everybody just straight away just flicks into a mode of, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Whereas there's other managers have been coming in and they're kind of standing at the front of the room and they're fiddling with their they're kind of, the cuff on their jacket, or they're kind of fiddling with the buckle of their belt, and you're just like, oh my God, there's no eye contact. He's looking at the floor and he's trying to impose himself, but he hasn't got that.
That's a bit harsh on Roy Keane now, Damien, to be fair. Yeah.
Dave, I'm looking through Crystal Palace managers of the last decade here. I'm going to start shouting them out now. Look at pictures of their jackets and see, who's...
Johnny, I couldn't believe when I read, Johnny, that Antonio Conte, they didn't want him at United because he was too demanding and too much of a micromanager.
Yeah, it's mad, really, and Rangnick's problems seem quite stark already. He's three crucial players will be out of contract come to the end of the season, including Pogba. And I don't think, I wouldn't have been all that familiar with him before he came to Man United, but he seemed to have a kind of a pressing style that Man United just don't seem to be capable of. And at the other end, then they're not really good enough to be a possession team. So you wonder where they are going. They will need a massive clear-out, I think, in the summer. And Solskjaer clearly wasn't the man for the job. But he has big problems with his attacking players. Bruno Fernandes' form has fallen off a cliff. His problems at the back. The midfielders, in general, don't look up to the standard of Man United. I think Ronaldo, he's turning 37 next month. I think, since he's come in, I've made this point a few times, the other attacking players, their form has been very poor for whatever reason, and it's clearly a divided dressing room. And you'd have to think at the moment, JD, they're in for a serious battle to finish fourth, because the aforementioned Conte and Arsenal have, there have been resurgences there, and I'd seriously worry for Man United. I know we seem to be talking about them every week. They are the gift that keeps on giving, but they've serious problems.
Martin and Galway's been on touch on 53106. United players are going to have a rude awakening soon. When fans turn on them, all the talk off the pitch is one thing, but the performances on the pitch are quite another, and show how disgraceful they are given what they're paid each week, and not to even lift a finger when you're selected. Massive clean out needed. I love the club, but I find it hard to support these players. Hi lads, the problem is Rangnick has not managed a top club before. Do the Man United stars have any respect in him, says Mark in Sandyford. I don't think Man United are doing anything wrong. Look at all the pleasure people are getting from their results, says Pat in Cork, who's a Liverpool fan. United for years have had no strength in the spine of their team. Compare midfield and central defence to City, Liverpool, Chelsea. If De Gea hadn't again found form, and without the Ronaldo goals, United would be even closer to relegation than the top four, says Brian. And how can a team of perennial underachievers and performers complain about anything? The weakness at Old Trafford is a direct consequence of weak management at the very top, post David Gill, and has now reflectively filtered down to every single aspect of the club, as far as down as he's overpaid prima donnas. His transfer policy has been a disaster. Youth team is starting to produce quality. They got rid of the guy who developed it. Who would take an interim manager seriously? No one. Pogba, the very centre of everything that's wrong with United. Get him out. Sell whoever does not want to be there, and find people that actually want to live and play in Manchester. This is the first glimpse of Generation Z footballers who treat football as a hobby. Damien, what, in terms of what you've seen on the pitch?
See, all that I just heard there, right, is great when it's Championship Manager on your computer, and you can, if you get it wrong, you turn it off and turn it back on again. That's a lot easier said than done. I mean, that is the epitome of easier said than done, everything you just read out there. That's a difficult job to do. I think, first of all, the manager, and I think this guy, he's a smart guy. Now, whether he has the authority or the personality to, kind of make the changes that are required, I mean, he must know. He's been there for 3 weeks now, but he probably hasn't got the authority. The club have said, no, we can't get rid of these players. They're on too much money, and we can't, we'd have to pay them up. Somebody's definitely done the maths. It cost them hundreds of millions of pounds to have the clear out that they're talking about. So this guy was brought in with the hope of that, you'd get that new manager bunked, and he could motivate unmotivated players. It's now been proven that he can't. So I think the problems at Man United run so deep, it's going to take a long, long time to unravel it. But it has to be recognition first that the actual problems need to be sorted out.
The problem with it is there actually is no quick fix, and we probably had this discussion over time that it's not, and maybe because the amount of money that was spent on the squad, you possibly did assume that in this modern football where the cult of the manager is so strong that you think that could happen. But even the line of thinking that the players don't have respect for this guy, that's such a free pass for players that sometimes as well too. Clearly the balance is right. Like what Damo said is, I mean, I was interested to hear what he said about that the manager has to get the tone right from the start, but then sometimes the cult of the manager and the focus on the manager becomes so convenient for players. But it's
very much as Tottenham a massive convenience under for someone like Nuno, for example, who never even started started really at Tottenham.
It's brilliant. It's like, well, we don't have the manager, so
They can't say that about Conte, for example.
like as you said, it's culture, as Damien said, is probably when the culture is wrong at the club, in the dressing room, then to a degree, like, a manager can only ever do so much as the manager can set a culture. But when you're coming in mid-season as well, into a sort of a strange time, even still with COVID and all of this, and busy enough schedule, like, it's probably hard to, that's the only pass you can probably give Rangnick at the moment. It is still, for all we talk about the bounce, it probably is still harder mid-season to arrive and inherit so many problems. But at the same time, someone decided that this was the type of appointment they were going to go for in the short term. So presumably he gave the pitch that he could do it when he spoke to them.
When you see what's happening at Arsenal, and I was so impressed with them in the Man City game last week, going down to 10 men. Now I know, everyone will boil that down to, typical Arsenal, they bottled it. But I saw something in that performance where I thought they're on the road to recovery. And look how long it took Arteta to change the culture of that football club. He came in there, and a lot of managers came in there and they tried to change it. And it looks like the Aubameyang incident has been like a huge catalyst for him. And the guts that they showed, even when they went down to 10 men against Man City, regardless of the defeat, they're on the road to recovery. They're not quite there yet. But they have, I think, righted their ship now. And they look like a football club with heart, with spirit, playing for each other, no bickering on the pitch. They all ran into the ground for each other. And I think that Manchester United, are going to have to accept the problems that they have. And I know it's easy for me to say this here, but if the manager just went in and just pulled the 2 or 3 and put them at the 23s, the 2 or 3 players that are causing a problem with the squad, he'd get the affection and the commitment of the 20 other players that are there. And I think then you can start the recovery process. But at the moment, while you're still infected like that, you're not going to start the recovery process.
We got to take a break. Damien Delaney, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward on OTB Football Saturday is back after this.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5. Remember, football on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more live on Sky Sports. We're joined by the former Republic of Ireland international defender Damien Delaney, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward and the football correspondent of the Irish Independent Dan McDonnell to talk about the beautiful game. You can text us 53106. Man United dominating the first quarter of the show, but plenty of other things to talk about as well, including our predictions on OTB Football Saturday for 2022. We want you, the listener, to get involved as well on 53106 at the cost of 30 cent. The Premier League champions, the Champions League winners, the World Cup winners and the Golden Boot winner. Will the Republic of Ireland women's team qualify for the World Cup? The Republic of Ireland men's player to watch in 2022, the League of Ireland winners in men and women's codes, and the League of Ireland players to watch. And what would you like to change in football? Some topics there to throw out to you, the listener, to get involved in the conversation between yourself, Dan, Johnny and Damien over the next hour and a half. Damien, I suppose over the last few weeks with Man City winning 11 games in a row in the Premier League, they've put on the turbo boost, and it's pretty hard to argue against them now to win the Premier League.
Yeah, it's difficult to see them giving it up from this position of strength. I think the last 2 weeks have been pivotal. That tie between Chelsea and Liverpool, as great and all as it was, that draw, previously then Chelsea drawing against Brighton, they just hit a road bump and City just put their foot down and were just flawless, really. Even the Arsenal game, where I thought, this could be, huge, that if City went on and lost this, then it would be touching distance. I still don't think it's absolutely over yet. I still think there's a bit more in it. I do believe that City will have their little moment between now and the end of the season where they will, maybe lose a game and have a couple of draws, but the others just have to be flawless now. And I mean absolutely flawless. They have to win nearly every game between now and the end of the season, and it's very, very difficult to see that happening. So not quite done yet, but certainly certainly on the way to it being done.
What has impressed you about City recently, and in terms of comparison to maybe previous seasons, Damien?
It's their ability to win games out of nothing. The Arsenal game was one where I thought, I know the red card, helped them massively, but they just seem, anytime you give them a glimmer, they take it. They don't offer up chances to a lot of teams, and if you just make one slight mistake, they punish it. They get the win, or they score at the right time just when they need to, and that is obviously the sign of a great team.
Are they champions for you? We all said in the studio in August.
Chelsea at the start. So I think this is the shortest part of the predictions, really.
Yeah,
it
is. It's a 2-word answer.
There's no awards to be handed out for spotting City as potential winners at this stage. I think that's probably
Johnny. Is it a 2-word answer for you, Man City?
Yeah, in a canter, and you can see De Bruyne coming back into form as well. You can see the attitude of their players. We're talking about Man United. The contrast is unbelievable, and Guardiola he doesn't put up with nonsense. And they can effectively take their foot off the gas now and concentrate in the Champions League, because they're going to win it by, I'd say, 15 to 20 points. Liverpool just don't look, as Damo says, like Liverpool and Chelsea need to be winning all these games, and they don't look capable of it. And very, very reliant on Salah. Liverpool, and probably not as good at the back as they were. I mean, 11 wins in a row. It's hard not to see them win it in an absolute canter, to be honest.
It wasn't a 2-word answer. I think was the answer there, but it
was. Well, we haven't heard much from him in the show, so it's probably good to bring him in. I think
he's dialing in from somewhere.
Johnny, are you in Kazakhstan again?
he's on the warfront somewhere. He's outside. I think he's in the hotel with Novak Djokovic. Actually, he's just headed out there. Johnny, it definitely sounds like he's somewhere like that at the moment. And even on YouTube, you can see a slightly unusual profile picture of Johnny holding a horse, which actually, if people are watching on YouTube, it's really unusual.
It is unusual.
It's a sort of like one of these Celebrity Squares programs where like the three of our heads are there and we're here in the moment, and it's just a black and white picture of Johnny holding an unidentified horse.
The horse is going to replace me after 4. So all of it does.
Surely a picture of anyone holding a horse is weird.
Yeah, well, not Johnny. It's just, I don't know. Who is the horse, Johnny? Does the horse have a name?
It was actually a friend's horse. That was in the early stages of the pandemic. We made a trip to Kildare. I think it was under the essential visits kind of guidelines at the times. My mate Adam's horse, but don't know much about it. It was only about a year and a half ago, but in COVID that seems like about 10 years ago, so I've actually half forgotten it now, but no doubt that horse went on to great glory.
And you're sponsored in the photo, if anybody sees it, by Calvin Klein jeans as well, which is interesting.
There we go, yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah, it is definitely a unique photo, Johnny. I was going to hope to make that joke that you'd be on Nothing to Declare, but obviously that's not going to happen.
Johnny has a lot to declare, to be fair. Any other 2022 predictions? What are our top ones?
Well,
Champions League.
I think Man City are going to win the Champions League.
You're certain they're going to win the Champions League?
I think.
How can you be certain that a team is going to win a knockout competition?
Because I can see things in the future, and then that's the way my life generally works.
If you can see things in the future, you're wasting your talent on Champions League predictions.
I've got Biff's almanac here from Back to the Future. I just think, look, it's eventually going to happen. They're getting closer and closer. If Pep can get out of his own way and just keep it the way he's been keeping it in the Premier League, I just think the Paris Saint-Germain games were interesting for me. They dominated both. Now they lost the first one, but the second one I thought they were really good. And I just think the Premier League is where it's at now.
Well, here's the thing.
Liverpool, the cup competition with Anfield, do have a big chance by going for City.
Here's the thing, like Damo or Johnny, does anyone see a non-English team winning the Champions League?
Bayern Munich have a chance.
I think Bayern are probably the only one for
maybe
me.
Real Madrid at a very much an outside.
Lads, Damo, what do you think?
No, I think it'll come from the Premier League, yeah. I think obviously, Liverpool and Chelsea, you can't discount them really, especially if they're kind of, I won't say out of the Premier League, and they're kind of focusing all their attention on the Champions League. Obviously City then will have it wrapped up, so they can kind of focus a lot on it too. But look, I'd safely say that it'll come from the Premier League. Even Bayern Munich getting beat last night, and they have no crowds at home, so there are obviously issues that they have to deal with as well. So Spanish teams, I can't see Real Madrid. I'm not sure they got the same bounce that they used to have. Inter Milan, is it possible they could do some damage? I'm not sure.
They play Liverpool, don't they? Or is it Inter Liverpool in the round of 16?
Keep on changing the draws.
Which draw was it?
Which one is it there? Are they playing them in? Yeah, potentially so. But
Irish player to watch this year says John Wexford is Festi Ebosele from Derby County.
Well, where's John from?
Wexford.
That's where Festi's from as well. But he is a good player. He's broken into he was playing for Derby earlier on. And he's sort of a wide player. He can play on the right, but he's played left side as well. He's definitely one to watch.
Well, the one I want to watch is Jason Knight. I wonder will he end up at a different club, because I think he's definitely got Huge potential, doesn't he, Jason Knight?
Inter do play Liverpool, by the way. I was just double checking that. But Jason Knight has huge potential, and although Derby are now linked with Mike Ashley taking them over, which is one of the more
forget about any signings.
One of the more curious stories of the day, where Derby are broke and they obviously probably want someone to come in, but I'm not sure is Mike Ashley going to be greeted in the same way as you might greet another takeover. But Jason Knight, I mean, there's probably multiple Irish players to look out for, but I think Derby is a good place to start. All right,
Evan Ferguson being the young one, I suppose.
Well, that's it. I mean, he might come on and off the bench this afternoon, potentially. I think there's obviously grades of young players. I mean, if you're talking about the Premier League level, we could probably pick loads of players, maybe at a younger level or maybe lower levels, be it lower leagues or League of Ireland or whatever. But I think in terms of one who could make that really big breakthrough, that sort of Irish striker in the Premier League breakthrough, Evan Ferguson is probably the one. It could be more next year than this year, but I mean he has been on the bench in Premier League games this year. They've let Aaron Connolly go out on loan, which is one less front player, and they might bring someone else in. But I think once Brighton are probably safe and they look like they're going to be this season, and as their season sort of peters out later on, if they are just nicely mid-table, you could certainly see him playing some football. Yeah.
We got a half times in the FA Cup. Barnsley 2, Barrow 0. It is Boreham Wood 1, Wimbledon 0. It is Kidderminster 0, Reading 1. It is Leicester City 2, Watford 1. It is Newcastle 0, Cambridge United 0 at half time. Peterborough 1, Bristol Rovers 1. It is Port Vale 0, Brentford 1. QPR 0, Rotherham 0. West Brom 0, Brighton 0. And Wigan 0, Blackburn Rovers 0 in the FA Cup third round. And McGrath Cup full times. Cork beating Clare by 2-9 to 10 points. So a 5-point win for the Rebels there in Munster. And in Leinster in the O'Byrne Cup, full times. Kildare 19 points, Westmeath 8. Wexford 6-10, Laois 13 points. Longford 2-13, Louth 14 points. And the Dubs winning 2-12 to 13 points against Offaly. Damien, just briefly, who is your Irish player to watch in 2022?
Omar Daly for me. I think he's showing huge potential. Hopefully he'll get a lot of minutes between now and the end of the season, and then he'll be established next season, either in the Championship or in the Premier League. And also, I think Bazunu as well. I know he's playing at Portsmouth. It's not the most high profile, but he's been doing really, really well down there. And I think that once the season finishes, he'll be going straight back out on loan, and hopefully this time to a higher profile club. In the Championship, or someone in the Championship that's competing at the top end, or perhaps even a Premier League. And I think that if he can get a higher profile stage, then we will certainly see a world-class goalkeeper starting to develop there.
Yeah, we'll talk after 4 about Kelleher as well, at his performance against Chelsea last week. Johnny, very briefly, the Irish player to watch in 2022 is?
I'll give 3 players in the League of Ireland, all at Dublin clubs. Ben McCormack at St. Pat's, very, very promising midfielder. Jamie Mullins at Bowles, his reputation precedes him a bit. And Idemo Maku at Shamrock Rovers, young striker. I know Stephen Bradley has massive hopes for him, and this could be his breakthrough year.
Okay, listeners out there, 53106, please get involved in the conversation. I think we all know that Man City will win the Premier League, but who will win the Champions League? Who will win the World Cup in Qatar? And who will win the Golden Boot? Plenty of discussion on that between 4 and 5. Will the Republic of Ireland women's team qualify for the World Cup? And the player to watch for the national team and the Republic of Ireland men's team, and League of Ireland winners, men and women. And also, what would you like to change in football if you had a magic wand in 2022? We're back after the news with Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. Damien Delaney, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward. Get your questions and your thoughts into them on 53106.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch the biggest games from Serie A and Ligue 1 this season, live on BT Sport.
Screen time.
Why not let the magic of the big screen and the small screen take away your January blues? And tune into Screen Time this week, where we'll be reviewing George Clooney's directed The Tender Bar and pondering if Keanu Reeves really needed to make another Matrix movie. We review the latest Star Wars installment, The Book of Boba Fett, plus filmmaker and musician Philippe King on his favourite movie.
Screen Time with John Fardy.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now, or tune in Saturday from 6.
Listen live or listen back on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud.
The Arnott's winter sale is now on, with further reductions of up to 60% off almost everything. The perfect excuse to get anything you want at the price you want. Whether it's sprucing up your home, updating your New Year wardrobe, or you just want to treat yourself. Shop the Arnott's winter sale with up to 60% off across all departments. Shop online at arnotts.ie.
Sparkling winter sale at Mount Wolseley Hotel, Spa and Golf Resort. Breathe in the crisp country air. Savour the woodland walking trail. Take in a round of golf on the Championship Golf Course. All boxes ticked, complete with a forest playground and zip wire, extensive leisure facilities and an award-winning spa with exclusive indoor beach. Plan your New Year country escape with up to 20% package discounts on mountwolseley.ie.
InsureMyCars.ie. Don't cut corners on your car insurance. Get a better quote at InsureMyCars.ie, Ireland's trusted car insurance specialists. We search the market to get you the best cover at the lowest prices. InsureMyCars.ie. City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyCars.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
In 2021, Volkswagen's ID3 and ID4 were Ireland's best-selling all-electric cars. But leadership means more than being number one. It means you have trust and confidence in us to make a difference. Trust in us to create all-electric cars with zero driving emissions. And confidence that our all-electric cars help deliver a better future. That's Volkswagen all-electric leadership. This is just the start. Volkswagen. Best-selling all-electric cars last year. Claim applies to January to November 2021.
Do you need security in a remote location? Have you power or connectivity issues? Then you need the NetWatch Eco Commander, a new self-powered solution in our rapid deployment security range. Like our original Commander, it can be on location, protecting your site within hours. The Eco Commander is cost-effective and environmentally friendly, with all the benefits of the trusted NetWatch service in a robust mobile unit. Find out more at netwatchsystem.com. NetWatch, creating a fearless environment.
Hi, my name is Simon. Hello?
This is your call to make a real difference. Aware are here for people living with depression and bipolar disorder. Now more than ever, we need your help for our phone and online support teams. You can change someone's world from your own home. Volunteer now at aware.ie. Proudly supported by Cadbury Dairy Milk.
January sale now on at Curry's. Save €100 on the Dell Inspiron laptop with Intel i3 processor, now $529. Get the Panasonic 65-inch 4K UHD TV, now $949. Save €500. And save up to €400 on American-style fridge freezers. Plus, we've got free delivery on all large kitchen appliances and large screen TVs. T's and C's apply. Get in-store or online at currys.ie.
The new year means new opportunities, and that's why Grow with Aldi is back for 2022. Aldi Ireland is looking for adventure seekers, innovators and creative suppliers to get involved in the campaign. News Talk will be showcasing some of the best small and medium food and drink suppliers from last year and catching up with some exciting new entrants in 2022. Not only will you benefit from the Grow with Aldi supplier development programme, but you'll also have the chance to get your product on the shelves of 149 Aldi stores nationwide. Add some adventure into your venture and head to newstalk.com/Grow with Aldi. Entries close by the 21st of January. Grow with Aldi, proudly supported by News Talk.
News Talk already gives you your daily fix of news and entertainment.
But wouldn't you like a little bit more?
More? News Talk Extra is everything you might have missed.
Plus, expert tips, podcasts and competitions.
All straight to your inbox.
Subscribe now at newstalk.com/extra.
On 106 to 108 FM.
On the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud
and smart speakers.
This
is News Talk.
It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Bernadette Jamieson. The Department of Health has confirmed the highest daily number of COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began. Figures released this afternoon show there are 26,122 new cases of the virus confirmed with PCR tests. Adrian Kennedy reports.
Today's record-breaking case count is widely expected to be an underestimate of the exact number of positive cases in the community. The HSE has still to confirm a system which would allow positive antigen tests to be uploaded to give a more complete picture of the actual virus numbers in the country. Demand for PCR testing and availability of antigen tests have been under severe pressure this week. Meanwhile, the HSE has confirmed that the number of people being treated for COVID-19 in Irish hospitals has fallen for the second day in a row. As of 8:30 this morning, 917 patients are being treated for the virus, a drop of 19 on yesterday. The number of people being treated for COVID-19 in the country's ICUs now stands at 83, a drop of 1 since yesterday.
Walk-in clinics for COVID-19 booster vaccinations are open at many centres around the country today. No queues have been reported apart from City Hall in Cork, where there's a waiting time of just 20 minutes. The walk-in clinic at City West in Dublin is reporting no queue, and the opening hours there have been extended until 7 o'clock this evening. The Education Minister says air filters aren't needed in every classroom. An online campaign by primary teachers highlighted classroom temperatures dropping below 7 degrees in some classrooms this week. Minister Norma Foley says her department will make funds available to any schools struggling with heating bills due to the pandemic ventilation requirements. She insists opening windows and other forms of ventilation comes ahead of air filtration.
There is a use in some instances, we'll say, for HEPA filters. Although, again, we're being well advised, we'll say, by Dr. Mike Ryan of the World Health Organization that going straight to technology is not the answer, and that's the line that we would have taken within the department. So where there are ventilation issues, we have said throughout, right since the reopening of schools, that if there are specific issues around ventilation, and in some instances it's very different in one school to another. So it may be the operation of vents, it may be window replacement.
Singer Sinead O'Connor has paid tribute to her son Shane, who has died aged 17. She posted the words, "May he rest in peace," on her Twitter account. Gardaí confirmed early this morning that they'd stood down a search for the teenager who'd been missing since Thursday. It's 2 minutes past 4.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Plan your summer holiday today with Ryanair's seat sale to the beaches of Spain, Portugal, Italy or Greece.
Scattered showers, wintry at times, will become mainly confined to the western half of the country later, occasionally turning to sleet. Lowest temperatures tonight, 1 to 4 degrees in moderate to fresh westerly winds, strong along Atlantic coasts. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.
And welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5. Remember, football on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. We're joined by Damien Delaney, the former Republic of Ireland international defender, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward, and the football correspondent of the Irish Independent, Dan McDonnell, to talk about the beautiful game. You can text us 53106. Listen on News Talk. Watch us on the digital and social channels for Off the Ball, for Periscope on Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. FA Cup third round is ongoing. And we've got matches entering the second half, including Leicester 2, Watford 1, that game in the Premier League. Wes Hoolahan as Cambridge are away to Newcastle as goalless at the moment as well. It is West Brom 0, Brighton 0, with Shane Duffy starting that game. Evan Ferguson on the bench. 53106. It's Coutinho what Villa are missing. A team with Argentina, Brazil, England, Poland, Scottish, etc. internationals, yet languishing in mid-table, says Owen and Drimnagh. Well, Owen, I suppose Stephen Gerrard is only just in the door, isn't he, at Aston Villa. But Philippe Coutinho, Damien Delaney, you played against him. You won for Palace against a Coutinho with Liverpool back in 2015, I believe. Did you remember much of him as a player?
Yeah, listen, he's an incredible talent. That period that he had at Liverpool, he was borderline unplayable. He was so difficult to pin down. He had a little drop of his shoulder where he'd stop and then accelerate again, and as soon as you slowed down, he was gone. And obviously he could finish. But then he went to Barcelona, and he's not the first player to go there and lose his way. And I think it could be, and I think it is, an incredible piece of business from Villa, because he's only on loan. They're not exposed financially to anything more than a short-term loan. And if Gerrard can get him anywhere near the level that he was at Liverpool, then it's an incredible piece of business. Now, I know it would cost a lot of money. There's probably loan fee and wages and whatnot, but it's a short-term thing, and they've obviously deemed the risk reward to be beneficial.
Can you recover form at 29 years of age?
I think you can. It's difficult. There are a lot of players who've kind of lost their way and then got back. I don't think you're ever going to go get him back to the actual level that he was at Liverpool and the consistency that he had at Liverpool. I mean, he was week in, week out, one of the best players in the world, hence the reason why Barcelona shelled out that much money for him. But you will get games where he will show that level, but you probably won't get it every week. He's probably been out of that environment for too long now. Might have some fitness issues in terms of getting up to speed, but I'm sure that Gerrard knows him really, really well. And if anybody can kind of spit shine and get him moving in the right direction, it'll be Gerrard.
Marcus Rashford has just tweeted the following. I read something earlier that said I'd been quiet on here, but what can I say that will make this better other than showing you all on the pitch? We're all being disappointed with recent performances. We've been as disappointed with the news coverage, questioning our commitment to not only the manager and the coaching staff, but the club. I've endless respect for both, and I'm looking forward to bettering my game under the staff at Manchester United. I'm not sulking, I'm not unhappy. Am I disappointed in some of my recent performances? Of course I am. I'm my own biggest critic. It's been a tough start, but I'm determined to prove my worth. My dedication and my desire to be here should never be in question. I love this club, says Marcus Rashford. Damien.
That's the first thing the club should ban, by the way. Players coming out with these ridiculous Twitter statements before, during and after games. It's incredible the amount of times players go. I mean, whoever's managing these players, whoever's telling them to write this, I mean, look, that guy gives the ball away and he does nothing, he just walks. I mean, his head goes down, and then he comes out with these statements and he expects us to believe, that it's not true. I mean, if he cared about that club, I've seen him countless times the last few weeks give the ball away and literally turn the other way and walk in the other direction. Yeah, sorry about that, man.
It's accompanied by a picture of Rashford as a kid in a Manchester United jersey.
Seriously,
with other Manchester United teammates. The Jesse Rashi is the image. I don't know, is that a relation? But it's showing him looking pensively, listening to some instructions as a kid in a Man United jersey. Now, listen, I think Rashford, by the way, is an incredibly impressive fella, what he's done off the pitch. I don't necessarily like when people try and use that against him when he struggles on the pitch. I think he's chosen to use his platform in a really positive way, and that should be applauded. But this is a nonsense statement. Do you know what I mean? This is both of those statements can be true. You can really respect them, but also think that maybe that sort of the old taking out the phone and typing out a statement on notes. It's probably not really going to help your case at the moment right now, but it's sort of, people want actions, don't they, really? I think at this
Fred was better, JD. He said, we will continue to work with great dedication to pursue our goals.
Have you become American?
I don't know what I am, but yeah, Fred, if they're doing the talk on the pitch, they're not doing it very well, and Rashford's form has been alarmingly bad. He's again one of these offensive players who has not improved at all since Ronaldo has come in, and not necessarily blame Ronaldo, but they're not functioning at all as a team.
It's all bottom up, isn't it now, Damien? It's not top down, it's all bottom up. It's all just directly from the employees to the consumer.
What? Say that again. Sorry.
Sorry. Sometimes language can be a bit obscure. It's all bottom up, but it should be top down. Don't do this, folks. Where it's oh no, I can communicate directly. I'm Marcus Rashford. I can tell everybody what I feel.
Yeah, look. I mean, I obviously, a lot of these players are stage managed by their handlers, I suppose would be the best way to put it. And I know a lot of players don't even have access to their own Twitter account. It's their agency that they're with just run the whole thing, and sometimes they're as surprised as us when they see stuff like that. So that's obviously an extreme end of it, but I do know that a lot of players have their own personal private Instagram and Twitter, and that's where they interact with their friends. And then they have their people putting out these things, and his social media people obviously felt that a heartfelt message at 3:00 on a Saturday was needed, so they threw it out there. But as a player, if that is the way that Marcus Rashford handles his business, then I would be phoning my agent straight away saying, take that down, please. There's been enough talking. You're just making me look bad. No, this is incredibly ridiculous. So, at some point he has to step in. I'm not saying that he didn't write that, but you have to always take that into account when you read stuff like this. But again, it technically is his because it's his Twitter account, so he does need to phone somebody to say, don't put that out, please. Or there's been enough talk in the last few weeks, and it's getting embarrassing now.
I mean, the first line of it is Rashford. We say Rashford saying, I read something earlier that said I'd been quiet on here. The only thing is, like, even, okay, if you wanted, you can, speculate whether it's him or not. Like, I guess because he has such a profile on social media, you've put yourself in a position where if you say nothing, maybe he's getting grief for saying nothing, and that's annoying him. And he's, well, I have to say something now. But then you've sort of backed yourself into some sort of weird position.
You're being dictated to by what you feel you should do.
Yeah, and it's sort of a mad situation. It's sort of it's just all a sort of a part of the soap opera, really, isn't it? And they've just become that sort of. It's just look what's happened now.
Well, I thought there would have been an improvement when Solskjaer left, that you would have a culture now, as Damien was saying, that we wouldn't be still talking about it.
I know it doesn't go away, does it?
No, it doesn't go away.
But
if Stephen Rice, JD, the Ireland opposition analysis and head scout, were at a game today, I'm guessing it might well be West Brom Brighton, and very interestingly, they're 1-0 to West Brom, and the goal scorer, Callum Robinson.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Callum Robinson he's so streaky, Callum Robinson, and it's actually a real. Like I looked at this in terms of his career that. He tends to score in gluts. I think he scored last week. He's got a couple now since Christmas,
right,
having had a bit of a drought prior to that. He sort of, if he could spread them all out across the season, it would be very encouraging. But we're hoping to see Evan Ferguson maybe come on in that game, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, 53106. I think Gavin Kilkenny could have a huge 2022. There's midfield places up for grabs, and Kenny's team, Ida and Omobamidele, need loans as soon as possible, says David in Rathmines.
Conor Coventry's another one, JD, that could be a big year for him. He's on loan at Peterborough, isn't he? And he's been very impressive player for Ireland under 21. Because I still think midfield, as the texter mentioned, the midfield positions are up for grabs, and maybe the number 10 type position up for grabs as well. And if we're waiting for these players to come through, I think Coventry is one that could develop into a lovely footballer.
He hasn't played a huge amount on loan, though. It hasn't really happened, and I think Josh.
Was he the one that was recalled, Dan?
Yeah, I was actually just to be honest, I was just checking that there because he hasn't been involved since the 11th of December, but I might have missed that over Christmas. But he, Odebeko was recalled from Huddersfield to West Ham. Mipo Odebeko, the striker, but Coventry hasn't played. The loan hasn't necessarily clicked in the way you would have liked. But I would say Josh Cullen probably has that berth in the team pretty much wrapped up, I would have said, but Coventry in the longer term, I must check that actually, Damo. I'm not entirely sure.
I think I read something that they were thinking of recalling him because it wasn't, or something like that.
It hasn't.
53106. Barney in Tyrone has been in touch to say, is Johnny in hiding after his abysmal crappy quiz performance? Couldn't even get the League of Ireland question right.
Did he get the League of Ireland question wrong? Did he get the? I mean, I actually, to be honest, I heard the start of it, Johnny, and your performance so abysmally, I just had to. It's just annoying, like, you don't like to see someone you care about suffer. It was that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. But aside from that, did he even get the League of Ireland question wrong?
I didn't hear it now. So.
I was appallingly bad. It was almost like I was a non-trier in a horse race. I was that bad.
It suggests to me like your performance struck me as someone who hadn't lived up to the dry January billing you'd spoken about earlier in the week. I'll say no more. Definitely didn't appear to be the case. Conor Coventry was.
How do you know that?
Because he sent me a load of pictures of pints from the pub. That'd be the main reason. Otherwise, it's just speculation. Conor Coventry has been recalled. Damo was totally on the ball. He was recalled by Peterborough. From Peterborough by West Ham.
Oh, and Cambridge have scored.
Cambridge
have scored. Now this is always subject to it being.
Is it subject to VAR in the FA Cup? I'm not so sure that it is it?
Oh, is it?
Some games are, some aren't.
Oh, is it? They still have that weird sort of we'll have different rules in the same competition.
Ironside has scored.
Okay.
So 1-0 away.
Ironside, was he in the bill?
Was he not in V? No.
I'm pretty sure Ironside was one of the DCs in the bill. But like that would be something, because Newcastle have sold that out, haven't they? They were close to selling that out because
I'm just googling the bill.
They're getting a bit of buzz off it. And I mean, if they lose that game, when it looked like they'd picked a strong enough side to build momentum, with Trippier playing, Jeff Hendrick on the bench, not even getting a game, so you'd wonder.
It was Burnside.
Oh, Burnside.
In the bill.
Who's Ironside?
I thought Ironside was in the
Ironside is its own TV show, I think.
Oh, okay.
All right, okay. Yeah, there was a Michael Ironside in V, which was this really creepy alien show in the mid-80s. Anyway, there's a lot of silence here. So
12 viewers, and I think we're looking for 11 more of them.
We're a bit giddy. Look, we were speaking about Coutinho there, and obviously he's looking to get in that World Cup squad and in the team for Qatar later in the year. Damien, who are you looking for the World Cup 11 months out?
I think England will do some damage in the World Cup. I'm not sure that they have enough to go and win it. But then, we've only seen the European teams. I've seen a whole pile of the South American teams. I don't want to be kind of generalising if I spoke about the likes of Argentina and Brazil. But from Europe, really, I think England will fancy the chances of getting to a semi-final final, which would be unbearable at Christmas time, to be honest with you, to have to put up with all that again. But I just think the way they're set up, they've got, if they get Harry Kane back into form, which I'm pretty sure by the time that rolls round, he will be. They've got one of the best young midfield players in the world in Declan Rice. I mean, the more I see him, he's just growing week on week. His performance last week in the Crystal Palace game is incredible. His appetite for the game, for such a big, imposing guy, him and Souček get around the pitch brilliantly well. So, the likes of him and the attacking players that they have available to them, the likes of Foden and Saka, I think they will fancy their chances, which I said would be pretty much unbearable, really.
Yeah, they're going to have the squad, aren't they? And they're going to have that's the midfield, obviously. The Phillips and Rice played well at the Euros. It's going to be a fascinating World Cup, Dan, in that, first of all, the heat, and second of all, players will be playing until the week before.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we might talk later on about sort of the African Cup of Nations and the preparations for that at the moment. And from working on a diary with Roberto Lopez from Shamrock Rovers, who's over there playing for Cape Verde, players are dropping in and out, and you get a sense of how chaotic a preparation for a tournament can be when you have players coming in at very short notice. And yeah, I mean, it is, to me, it's unbelievable, but maybe not surprising that the build-up is going to be that short, and it really does then. Sometimes you have teams that are like tournament teams that they get better the longer they spend away together, and you have other teams who they have volatile personalities that actually cabin fever sets in over a period of time. And you kind of wonder, could this be you'd see at various times you'd have countries where the players would just fall out, they were sick of each other, or the manager would have a very, you'd heard about Trapattoni's Ireland in Euro 2012, but by the time they got to the tournament the players were tired because they'd completely overdone it in terms of their work in the build-up. I think Capello with England in 2010 was similar. They stayed in a place that was a bit dull. I think the players were completely worn out by the time the football started, whereas not going to have that this time. It's a bit more like a traditional international break where you just fly in and you play. And I mean, it's a sort of disgusting World Cup in a way in terms of just how it's all been hosted, how it's been handed out. I'm sure that always has to be spoken about and will be spoken about. But from that sort of footballing angle, yeah, it is a bit of a weird one. Would it actually potentially even suit someone like France had their issues in the Euros just gone, but they still have an incredible squad. They still have really good array of talent, and there might have been some personality issues, or you saw some stuff coming out after, but they still actually in the Euros really, you felt like they had the potential to be one of the best teams, and there's no reason why come December they won't be a strong contender. I agree with Damo that England are going to be good. People just going to have to accept it. I think the interesting one might be Spain as well, because they did look in the Euros like a team that was evolving, and even the fact, so given another sort of 11 months or so, even the likes of Pedri and some of the players, and again, heat is going to be a factor. I know they have their air-conditioned stadiums or whatever, but even teams who can keep the ball and just manage the conditions and stuff, they're going to be interesting. But without having the draw, it's obviously there's only so much you can talk about. But I think they'd be the ones you'd be looking for. I mean, it's going to be interesting, but weird, you know, and it's a World Cup like some of the traditional stereotypes and cliches about the World Cup, you might have to redraw some of them.
It's a disgusting World Cup on so many levels, and to build stadia in a place as small as Qatar, where there will, like, if you can bring a World Cup to a country and allow that country to grow as a football nation, and, you know, like say for example Ireland isn't exactly overrun with good stadia or whatever, so we had an extra good stadium, it probably wouldn't be an issue. We're a sports mad country. Beyond this World Cup, which itself should never have been given to Qatar, what are they going to do with these 8 stadia where people just clearly won't be filling them? And notwithstanding the people who built them and died building them, it's just disgusting on so many levels. And as much as obviously we want Ireland to win games, it's the one World Cup where I genuinely couldn't really care that we're not there.
I think one of the stadiums is like they take it apart and move it somewhere else. So some of the stadiums are built that way, Johnny. So,
jeez.
Some of it might pop up in Galway, Johnny. You might be happy with it eventually.
Yeah, JC's Barmy Army.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with one of the best games I saw last year was France and Spain in the Nations League final. It was a fantastic match, and yeah, I would agree with you that I think France and Spain are thereabouts. If Spain have a striker, if they can get a striker there.
You mentioned the heat as well, JD. Like that could be an issue in the sense that Spain could have so much of the ball that teams are just going to get very, very tired playing the game. Like Pedri's a good example as well of the demands on players nowadays. He's just turned 19. He played a colossal amount of football. By the time the World Cup comes around, I don't know how much of a break he'll have had at all over the last couple of years. Like really, really lovely player, but again, a player that, you know, probably is playing too much and could suffer burnout down the line. Another big issue in the game nowadays, I think.
Dan, here's a question for you. How soon after the final does the league resume?
Well, I think that they're trying to. I don't think the Premier League are willing to lose their, you know, Boxing Stephen's Day fixtures, right? So the final is
the 18th of December.
18th of December. I don't think the Premier League is breaking in such a way that, because when you think about it, there'll only be 2 teams in the final, you know, so a lot of the other teams would have been knocked out. I could be wrong at that, but I think the Premier League are leaving it as tight as they possibly can because they don't want to lose too much of their, you know, their broadcasting window, and the Christmas one is a big one.
It would have been incredible if like, you know, Spain or whatever won it, and then you fly straight home and your league starts the following week.
Yeah,
you know, just after winning a World Cup, that would be surreal.
They're going to have to. I think. I suppose. Look, it's just an extreme version of what happens with, again, the African Cup of Nations now. When that happens, like, managers are just going to have to make accommodations for some of their players who've been involved and manage the situation as best as they can. You know, and manage that sort of player welfare. You know, that's what they're going to have to do. I suppose. I don't know if you have the schedule there, John, or what they're doing. But again, there will be an FA Cup week soon enough, so there'll be no World Cup players playing on that anyway. And we'll talk about where the magic has gone. But like that is managing that is going to be another element the next season for sure.
Just on Pedri, JD, he played 73 games last season, including at the Olympics, and he had a 5-day break afterwards before returning to his club.
Yeah, it's commodities, isn't it? I'm quite depressed what I read like this week about 32 team Euros. So this awful idea about the World Cup every 2 years. It's just all getting out of hand, isn't it?
It is.
It's just getting out of hand. The audience are just. I love seeing some of this stuff. 53106. The Michael Ironside from V recently popped up in the recent Irish programme Hidden Talents, says Niall in Dublin.
That's for one of the other 12 viewers, so we've got 10 more to go.
Ironside was a detective in a wheelchair, a very popular American TV series in the 70s starring Raymond Burr as Jack and Santry. And Ironside also played a hard taskmaster in Top Gun. He also played a hard taskmaster in Eeyore, says Enda.
I know we talk about the FA Cup and the loss, the magic and all that, but just for the next few minutes or as long as they hold on, you can imagine the magic of Cambridge and Wes maybe coming on, winning at Newcastle. I mean,
he has come on. He's come on a few minutes ago, Johnny.
Wow! So I'd actually love to be there and just watching Wes and frustrating lads half his age by holding on to the ball, and it's obviously you wonder how much of a priority the FA Cup is for Newcastle. They've won one game in the league, but this is really.
But they've made a big. The whole point about Newcastle is they've made a big play to make today an event. Like Trippier was signed and they've put him straight into it. So you can't sugarcoat it for Newcastle by saying, "Oh, they've left out sort of 10 players or whatever." They're clearly probably trying to use that as a bit of a morale boosting event.
Latest scores: Barnsley 2, Barrow 0, Boreham Wood 1, Wimbledon 0, Kidderminster 0, Reading 1, Leicester 3 now, Watford Waterford 1, Harvey Barnes with the third goal. Newcastle 0, Cambridge United 1, 67 minutes on the watch. Peterborough 2, Bristol Rovers 1, Port Vale 0, Brentford 1, QPR 0, Rotherham 0, West Brom 1, Callum Robinson on the mark, Brighton 0, and Wigan 1. Blackburn Rovers 1, and Brentford have just scored a second away to Port Vale in the FA Cup third round. 53106 Declan in touch. World Cup at the depths of winter and cold dark nights, brilliant, so much better than watching on a lovely hot summer's day. League of Ireland champions, Johnny, will be Shamrock Rovers again?
Yeah, I think standard wise, I think it's possibly the best League of Ireland ever this season, potentially anyway. Dan broke the story there that Owen Doyle was going to make what I thought was a quite surprising switch to St. Pat's, and it's subsequently transpired. They now have 3 new strikers and could have a lot of firepower this season. But when you look at Shamrock Rovers, the quality they have, I mean, you potentially Graham Burke, Dylan Watts, Danny Mandroyu and Jack Byrne in your team. I mean, they're going to have so much of the ball. I think goalkeeper might be the one issue where you'd wonder with them in terms of, is Alan Manis the goalkeeper that he was? He certainly wasn't last season, and he made some quite costly mistakes. I'm surprised they didn't bring in a keeper. They haven't brought in one yet, but other than that, it's very hard to see how they don't win the league, to be honest.
What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, they're deserved favourites, and they have. I mean, when you've won the league pretty comfortably last year, and then you add Jack Byrne, who was the top player in the league the previous 2 seasons, to the mix, I think the main enemy for Rovers would be that some degree of like complacency sits in, because they've won the titles, and there's always that danger. You don't find that motivation to go again. But I think in a way, that week they had last year where they were knocked out of the Cup and knocked out of Europe when they had a good chance might be a good thing in terms of keeping the focus at the club, because they still have stuff to aim for, to try and retain the league and go for 3 in a row, but really push on in Europe. And I think that overall package should probably be enough for them to be the strongest one. But it is going to be an interesting season. I'm not sure about the best ever. I think I suppose it's very, very subjective anyway, but you can't prove that. But it has the potential to be one of the more interesting ones, just purely for some of the storylines, as Johnny alluded to. Owen Doyle going to St. Pat's. You've had the Stephen O'Donnell thing going to Dundalk. You have Derry bringing some of their better players home with their owner now running a billionaire. His company sold for over £1 billion. You got Damien Duff at Shells. I think there's reason to believe it definitely could be one of the more absorbing ones in terms of maybe commanding interest. But it may well be that the title race is quite routine.
Breaking news on Off the Ball Saturday. No Stephen Cluxton or Jack McCaffrey for Dublin this year, says manager Desi Farrell after the win over Offaly in the O'Byrne Cup today, following Paul Mannion saying during the week that he would not be involved for 2022. So clarity from Dublin about their players that won't be involved in 2022. And you'd have to think that if Desi Farrell is saying that, we will not see Stephen Cluxton in a Dublin jersey again. I think we knew that, but the confirmation of that today.
The Mannion one is interesting, JD, because he's due to be playing in half an hour for Crokes against
Naas.
Against Naas, which is obviously Naas ending a big famine and almost like a player revolt leading to them having managerial upheaval and it all working out. But there's been a lot of doubts about Mannion's fitness going into the game, and I'm still not entirely sure what level he's at today, and I think that'll have a massive bearing on it. But as we spoke about on OTB AM, it's very interesting. A player 28 years of age is deciding not to commit for Dublin. It's a sign of just the demands on players nowadays.
Absolutely, and also Dublin's journey to that 5 in a row and then subsequently 6 in a row. But the Jim Gavin years, I mean, I think it took a lot out of those players, and they had to keep on going to the well again and again and again, and they have nothing to prove. And it's a chance for Desi Farrell to have a new broom there. Cricket update: Ireland in the 2020 against the West Indies. The West Indies batting first, currently 80 for 4 after 23 overs. Constitution Hill at a price of 5-2 on has won the Tolworth Hurdle at Sandown today. In the O'Byrne Cup, Kildare 19 points, Westmeath 8 is a full time. Wexford 6-10, Laois 13 points a result. Longford beat Louth by 2-13 to 14 points in the Dubs, as I said. 2-12 to 13 point winners over Offaly. In Munster in the McGrath Cup, it ended Cork 2-9, Clare 10 points. Don't go away, because Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk is back after this.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch the biggest games from Serie A and Ligue 1 this season, live on BT Sport.
At Harvey Norman, we've got big deals on home appliances and technology. Save €80 on the Huawei MateBook D laptop with Intel Core i3 processor and sleek portable design. Now only €569. Or save €56 on the Garmin Instinct Solar, the rugged GPS-served smartwatch with solar charging, giving incredible battery life and water resistant up to 100 metres. Now only €354. Shop our big deals safely in our spacious stores or online at harveynorman.ie.
Go! Describe Maynooth University in 3 words.
You're in control.
Young, bold, progressive.
Skills for life.
Gives you choice.
Feel so happy!
Choose the university that puts you first.
Best decision ever.
Virtual CAO Information Evening, January 12th. Visit openday.maynoothuniversity.ie. Maynooth University. No bounds.
Today, everybody, it's time to check in with the progress of the oats for Flahavan's Progress Oatlets with Sean, one of our local growers. Sean, can you tell us the secret behind what makes Flahavan's oats so special?
Well, now, with the combination of high quality soil, along with perfect conditions for growth, that's how we've been doing it for generations.
And that's what helps give our oats their rich and creamy taste. No mystery.
Flahavans, not your run-of-the-mill oats.
At John Taylor Menswear, we're upgrading our store and we're upgrading our sale offers too. Discover incredible reductions on your favourite brands. Louis Theroux, Eden Park, Tommy Hilfiger, amazing ranges by Calvin Klein, Strelson and Bugatti. John Taylor Menswear, Upper Bagot Street. Shop in store or online at johntaylor.ie. The Tile Style 40th anniversary sale is now on, and we're celebrating with 40% off all in-stock top brand tiles, even porcelanosa. Huge savings on bathrooms, kitchens and wood flooring in stock now. Help us celebrate 40 years at Europe's largest tile, kitchen, wood and bathroom showroom in the Tile Style 40th anniversary sale. Shop in store at Ballymount or at tilestyle.ie.
Here's another amazing Aldi offer. Our Grow with Aldi programme in association with Bord Bia offers ambitious Irish producers the opportunity of a lifetime to supply Aldi stores nationwide. It's great news for our customers too, because they get to support local Irish suppliers. If you've got a product you want to tell the whole country about, apply now and find out more at aldi.ie/grow. Applications close the 21st of January. Aldi, everyday Irish, everyday amazing.
The Woodies sale is now on. We've got unmissable savings on DIY, home and garden in a one-stop shop, including up to 50% off tiles, 20% off lighting and 50% off home furniture. Shop the way that suits you, in-store, online or with click and collect. Woodies, we're all homemakers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5 in the company of Damien Delaney, the former Republic of Ireland defender, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward and the football correspondent of the Irish Independent Dan McDonnell. To talk about the beautiful game, you can text us your predictions for the year 53106. Who's going to win the World Cup? Who's going to win the Premier League, Champions League, League of Ireland? Which Irish player are you looking forward to seeing in 2022? Are the women's team going to qualify for the World Cup? We're streaming the conversation as well. You can listen on News Talk, watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope on Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Latest scores from the FA Cup. The miracle is still on. Cambridge United won with Wes Hoolahan now on the pitch. Newcastle 0 at St James's. Wigan have scored 2-1 up against Blackburn. It is West Brom 1, Brighton 0. QPR 0, Rotherham 0. Port Vale 1, Brentford 2 now. It is Peterborough 2, Bristol Rovers 1. Leicester City 3, Watford 1. Kidderminster 1, Reading 1. Boreham Wood 1, Wimbledon 0 and Barnsley 2. Barrow 1. The African Cup of Nations starts tomorrow, Dan. I think you had a piece in the paper you're talking about there. I've never really watched it. I was going through all the winners since I think it was 1957. And of the 32 tournaments, 11 of them have been won by the host nation. So that's
Cameroon, yeah. And Nathan had Joseph Van Doe on during the week who had some great stories of his own memories. And no, Roberto Lopez, Shamrock Rovers defender, who qualifies for Cape Verde through his father. He's from Cape Verde and left when he was a teenager. So he's over there playing in the competition now, and he's doing a diary for us in the Independent across the competition. And so I would have been speaking with him quite a bit this week. And it's like, for someone, for someone like him and a lot of the players, this is a major tournament. Like this is
like a Euros,
this is a Euros. This is huge,
America.
But like everything now, like the COVID element has just has put a cast a sort of massive shadow over the preparations. He was telling the story about how. Roberto Lopez, since he's gone over, he had his original roommate, he tested positive for COVID. Then his replacement roommate, he also tested positive for COVID. I think Roberto was thankful to the Rialto Medical Centre who had a couple of spare boosters before Christmas or no shows. He got the call, went and got his booster, and is now possibly thinking this is potentially saved his chances of being involved. Their manager is still in Cape Verde, tested positive. The captain is still in Cape Verde, tested positive. All three of their goalkeepers at one stage were positive. So they had 3 days training without a goalkeeper until they called another one up. And this is a preparation for like a major tournament. And he was even telling the story about arriving in Cameroon where everyone had done PCR tests to fly, but then there was antigen tests on arrival, and 2 of the players tested positive, were taken away. They basically haven't seen them since because they were waiting for the doctor to come on duty and do the PCR test. So I would say there's a lot of stories going to come out of the competition about, for the players, the interrupted preparation caused by this. But take that away from it. It's a huge moment. It's a huge competition. I think they're allowing 60% capacity in stadiums, and 80% of Cameroon are playing. All the games are on Sky as well. It's not behind the red button like Copa America was last year. So you had sort of Messi in that huge moment, Argentina, Brazil, but that tournament really wasn't visible. It just wasn't there for people. This African Cup of Nations, I think, it'll probably generate more discussion because people are spending a lot more time indoors still, and you're going to have a lot of those, the games are on Sky, and you're going to have a lot of big stars spread out across the various nations. So I think there's going to be a bit of a buzz actually built up around it as it goes on. But the one slight caveat is like the COVID stuff is obviously still probably going to interrupt teams. Aubameyang is out there, and then he tested. I think he got done by the same antigen test on arrival that
right
Cape
for
Verde
Gabon, and he was pictured enjoying himself in Dubai apparently recently.
He went to meet. He was let out early. I think a lot of them were, Dubai was used as a sort of a stopover point to fly in from there. But it's brilliant for Roberto Lopez, or Pico as he's known. And Pico was actually Cape Verde. It's for strong. His dad nicknamed him Pico. Everyone calls him Pico. Okay. That's actually in the native tongue, and it means strong. That's what it is. It's that's the nickname that was given to him. But it's now how he's known. But you have this. He is a League of Ireland player from Crumlin who, until a couple of years ago, had almost ignored or was just hadn't paid attention to that heritage. He had a LinkedIn message that he ignored. That it was in Portuguese,
right? And
it was from the previous manager, and he just thought it was spam. He didn't really people over there on LinkedIn, you might get a request for someone to link, and it was in Portuguese, and he didn't even think anything of it. And then 9 months later, this same person contacted him again. And he just said, 9 months later, this guy came back and spoke in English this time and said, "Do you want to play for Cape Verde?" And it was the former manager. And he said, "Okay, I wouldn't mind giving that a go." And he went there, and he's been an international for, I think, since 2019, and now he's off playing in the AFCON.
They play Ethiopia tomorrow.
Ethiopia tomorrow at 7 p.m. It's on Sky Sports Football. But Roberto Lopez is in the Dublin football scene. Ex Belvedere, played for Bows, gone to Shamrock Rovers. He's as Dublin as can be, but he has his roots are in Cape Verde. His grandfather is he's 94. And he's a sugarcane farmer, still out working the land in Cape Verde. Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. And I think in a way, we've probably think about it. We've over the years in Ireland, we've used the eligibility rules to get so many players to play for us, and they sort of reconnect to their family in some ways through that link. And the Cape Verde story is one of emigration for a lot of people. I think half the squad is people who were born around Europe who've reconnected. So it's definitely one. He's got some good stories, and he's going to keep telling them to us as it goes on.
Cameroon and Burkina Faso, the other teams in that group. Did you have teammates, I'm sure, Damien, that played in African Cup of Nations, that they departed in January for the month?
Absolutely, and players that went and played in the Oceania version as well, or the Asia Cup. So players from Australia and that who play in that. So it's just something you have to deal with. You're kind of doing the math of, what's the longest possible time they could be away. Likely when will you get them back, and what games will they miss? But it's coming a long time down the road. Luckily for Shamrock Rovers, it's kind of he'll come back fit and ready to go when the League of Ireland season starts. He'll just go straight back into their pre-season. So from Rovers' point of view, it doesn't make much of a difference. But for teams that are fighting relegation or teams that are chasing Premier Leagues like Liverpool, and you lose Salah and Mane for a number of games, so look at the fixture list, they should have enough to get them over the line in those games. But obviously mentally, the toll that can take on players when they're away in those enclosed environments, the stressful environment Dan is talking about there with COVID and whatnot. You'd be dreading tests in the morning because as you're going in for your test, you could be thinking that my tournament's over before it's began, or you could be playing really well and all of a sudden COVID gets you. So that's a stressful kind of pressure cooker environment to be involved in. And then you come back to your club and hopefully you're clear of COVID and you can play games again. So they'll definitely be a little bit fatigued after that.
Have you watched much of the African Cup of Nations over the years, Johnny?
I haven't actually, and I was just going to say I'm going to take way more interest in this competition for two reasons. One of them, it's really, really cool to have a League of Ireland player playing, and they're expected to do okay, I think, Cape Verde as well. They're hot favourites to beat Ethiopia, and just watching him in the League of Ireland, I don't know if Cape Verde have anyone with the quality of Jack Byrne for corners, but Pico, who is an absolute gent, by the way, one of the really good guys of the game, he is really, really good from corners. He scored a lot of crucial goals for Shamrock Rovers, so it's not out of the bounds of possibility that he could score a goal for them. And secondly, you get Mo Salah playing for Egypt, best player in the world, I think, at the moment. I'm fascinated to see what they're like with him in the team, how he dovetails with the other players. And I know Jonathan Willis was on with Nathan. He spoke about the fact that it is harder for the sort of the the North African countries, shall we say, to do well in sort of when the competition is taking place in more south in the continent. I think they have a very poor record in general, but it's going to be fascinating to see how Salah gets on. And imagine if he ends up marking Pico at some stage.
Yeah.
Probably the other way around, I would have thought, Johnny. And your GEA roots betray you there when it comes to that. I think everyone marks Salah as opposed to Salah marking defenders, I think.
Yeah, Algeria expected to do well in the African Cup of Nations. It's still on. Cambridge United 1, Newcastle 0. 6 minutes left plus stoppage time in the FA Cup, which is fascinating to see. We're doing predictions for the year. The women's team, Dan, to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two-pronged, really. The main thing, not the main thing, the first step is to get runners up in their group and get the playoff spot. I think they're very well placed to do that at the moment. From what I recall, their schedule this year, it all revolves around 1 week in September.
Yeah.
That they're probably expected to lose in Sweden and probably expected to win in Georgia. So then they're basically down to this double header with Finland at home and Slovakia away. And I'm hoping restrictions and all that are gone or not. We're not talking about them come September. Bloody hell. You could have a situation where that game at home to Finland could probably end up being the one where they really properly sell out Tala, and there should be the push to do it. And I think it looks like they've got a really good chance to get into the playoffs, provided they can keep their better players fit and be available that week. And then you're just into the realms of who you get from the other groups and what happens. But I mean, it's not like the number of places available. There's not a huge difference between, say, the Euros and the World Cup in the women's game, whereas obviously in the men's side, so much easier to qualify for the Euros. The system isn't massively dissimilar in terms of the Women's World Cup, the procedure you go through, finish second, get a playoff. So yeah, it's there for them, and I mean, it would be, it's an obvious thing to say, but it would be an incredible thing. It's just there would be a slight concern that after their brilliant win against Finland in October, that they didn't quite back it up in November against Slovakia, and that would be the slight worry that they did sort of. They messed up at the end of the last Euros, so they have a question mark hanging over them to see this off, and they're going to have that until they do it, and that's obviously the thing that's, that's the weight they carry with them at the moment. But I really, really hope this is the year where they can remove that, and they have some good younger players as well, the likes of Ellen Malloy playing in the league here, exceptional young talent that. see where they are even in another 8-9 months' time. Maybe it might be a little bit too soon for them to fully impose on this campaign, but definitely, listen, it could be a big story later in the year for sure.
Mark Albrighton has just scored for Leicester 4-1. They lead Watford. Newcastle still trailing Cambridge United by a goal to nil. Caoimhín Kelleher I thought was very assured, Damien, for Liverpool against Chelsea in the Premier League last week. Great to see an Irish player involved in such a global match, 2-2 draw. Do you think he needs to move to get regular game time, or do you think he just needs to stick it out at the moment?
No, I think he's fine where he is. I mean, he's number 2 there. If he was number 3 and he was only playing League Cup games, I would say that, chances are he should move on, but he's second choice there. He's going to get some games, especially with COVID around hopefully next number of weeks. He's going to get opportunities, and he's learning in an environment, playing against players in training. He's still incredibly young, not just for a goalkeeper, but in general. So I think at the moment he's absolutely fine where he is, and he's obviously developing. You can see that from his performance at Stamford Bridge. Klopp obviously has huge faith in him, and I think nearly all his needs are being fulfilled. There will come a point where he might want to say, look, if I can't nail down number 1 spot at Liverpool, then maybe it's time for him to move on. But the more he can put in performances like he did against Chelsea, the better his landing spots are going to be in a couple of years if he does decide to move on. He could quite easily fall into another Premier League team and have an incredible career for himself, or even a Champions League level team. So he's absolutely fine where he is for the time being.
Should mention Evan Ferguson has come on for Brighton and assisted a goal shortly after his introduction. So 1-1 away to West Brom. So he's making his presence felt.
Graham Potter had a lot of positive things to say about him during the week, interestingly.
Unless, Evan Ferguson, I listen. There's always that sort of that tripartite thing, and you're avoiding it. But again, we talked earlier in the show about agents and all this, and sometimes you'll hear hype from different people. But what I always love about Evan Ferguson is that I've from people who have no stake in the game, no horse in the race, who have nothing to gain from Evan Ferguson doing well, but are very much involved in football and would normally be pushing their own players. Everyone keeps saying, they keep hearing, no, this kid is a real prospect. He's got a great chance. He's got a great attitude. So
his dad was a footballer.
Yeah, Barry Ferguson. Was away as a kid, so he knows the pitfalls. Had a League of Ireland career. Evan's sister is also a very talented athlete. Is away on a scholarship, sports scholarship in America as well. So I think there's a real solid sort of family unit there, and great belief in his personality. But I mean, you talk about attitude, and I think he's good in that, but there can always be injuries and other things that can happen. But the regard in which he's held, it's clear to see, it's obvious, and I just hope he does become one of the good stories of this year. I mean, in Kelleher thing, what I just loved was how confident he looked. You almost mentioned it, John, how assured he looked, that certainly he just carried himself like someone who belonged there. And myself and Johnny had Dean Kiley on during the week, and even just speaking about the way keepers play nowadays, and it just looks so natural to him. It's not like he didn't actually have a huge amount of touches in the game, Keller. He didn't have but what he had to do, he just did it so well. And there was 1 or 2 times in the second half, I think, where he threads this pass out from defence, and it's not like he just looks like, to him, this is the most natural thing in the world to do. It's not like there was that element of risk, some sort of jitters or fears, and that's a full house, a proper game, and he looked completely he didn't look to be ruffled by it at all. And that to me was the best. He'll make mistakes, he's previously conceded goals, but I think ultimately his temperament and his calmness will carry him a long way, I think.
They could do nothing about the goals that they scored as well.
Previously in the previous cup game, I think he'd had 1 or 2 maybe difficult moments, but I think people expect that. You forget that he's insanely young for a goalkeeper still, and that's where we're so spoiled at the moment, that really the best years of these guys' careers, 4, 5, 6, 7 years away in some of their cases, and they're already operating on a pretty high bar.
With Darren Connolly, Damien, it is just a case of, as he said during the week himself, enjoying football and scoring goals and getting back into a degree of confidence and getting run in the Middlesbrough team.
Yeah, listen, everyone makes mistakes. I think he admitted that in the articles I read, that he had a couple of missteps and whatnot, but learning from them is key. He's obviously talented. His work rate is incredible. He just needs to learn to play the game now, learn how to be a professional footballer, how professional footballers behave, to get the consistency that he's required. But I've every confidence that he can go to Borough and as I said, develop and learn as a person as well as a footballer.
And with Matt Doherty, it might be the case that Tottenham is not for the long road with him and Antonio Conte. Does he need to get more game time, in your view, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, Matt had a distinguished career at Wolves, played an awful lot of football. He's not a young fella by any stretch. He's going through a difficult period. The European games probably helped that he was getting some game time, but it can be very, very difficult when the fan base turn on you is a difficult term, but he comes in for an awful lot of criticism, and that can be a difficult working environment. But look, he's a hell of a player, and I really do rate him. But it's just going through a difficult period at the moment. But if a change comes, it comes. Whether in January at the end of the season, but whatever happens with Matt, I'm pretty sure he'll get himself together. He's experienced enough, and sort his issues out.
These matches going into closing stages now in the FA Cup. Barnsley 3, Barrow 3, Bournemouth 2, Wimbledon 0, Kidderminster 2, Reading 1, Leicester City 4, Watford 1, Newcastle 0, Cambridge 1. Come back to that in a moment. Peterborough 2, Bristol Rovers 1, Port Vale 1, Brentford 4, QPR 0, Rotherham 0, West Brom 1, Brighton 1, and Wigan 2, Blackburn Rovers 2. Birmingham against Plymouth is a 5:30, as is Chelsea Chesterfield, Hull Everton, Swansea Southampton, Yeovil Bournemouth. Will Wes Hoolahan be drinking a pint on the pitch at St James's Park in the next few minutes?
Well, I was just looking. People say the magic of the cup could be gone, but there's a picture of all the Saudi bigwigs in the directors' area today with Amanda Staveley. If they get dumped out at home by Cambridge,
and it's a full-strength team.
That is the magic of the cup right there. We've written it off. It's been written off far too early. If all the Saudi top dogs are there and they get dropped out by Cambridge, they're going to be so confused. They're going to be like, we've lost to a university here. What's happened? That's all they've heard of Cambridge.
Boat races against Oxford.
This is not what is happening. So it just goes to show that money just can't get you everywhere in life.
As well, Dan, just looking at Twitter, this is a selection of the latest involving Wes Hoolahan. Wes Hoolahan's absolutely class at 39. Wes Hoolahan is still class despite his old age. Wes Hoolahan is still hooping at this level. What a man.
There we go.
Could he do a job for Ireland?
It's
what a grenade!
What a grenade to throw!
There's only 4 minutes left in the show, lads. That's why I said that.
But even Cambridge are using him sparingly this year. They're dropping him off the bench a lot more. And I saw someone who'd covered a Cambridge game where they were describing how Hoolahan did some brilliant moment in the game recently, but at the end of the game he was just over on his hands and knees, almost like he's putting absolutely everything into it, and he's looked after himself so well. But I don't know. I'm sure if Ireland, there's plenty of games Ireland have played in the last year, John, I'm thinking maybe the ones where they were struggling to break down teams. I'm sure Wes coming on for 10-15 minutes would not have weakened the side, but I'm not sure if I want to stimulate that great debate again. We've had the Kenny contract. Maybe the 2022 debate can be Wes. One more rodeo, please.
It took 3 minutes before the end of the show before Stephen Kenny was mentioned on Off the Ball Saturday.
You've done all right, yeah.
Kerry have beaten Tipperary in the Munster Hurling Cup 17 points to 14. That is a shock of Cambridge-like proportions today. One of our tweeters was looking for the score, and that is the score at 90 plus 5 minutes. Johnny, what can you say about Wes Hoolahan that's not been said,
I just think it's an awful indictment of the philosophy in this country and the way we look at our footballers, and I think that's what Stephen Kenny is trying to change, that it took him so long to be recognised for the player that he is. And I think as well, if you are a young player, and today is a big day for Irish football in one sense, Evan Ferguson making his competitive debut, I think, and setting up a goal. God knows where he's going to go in his career. At the other end of the spectrum, Wes doing what he's doing at his age. But I think what was lovely in his interview with Aidan Fitzmaurice in the end of the day was he said, I never had pace. I just had to use my brain to overcome that. And if you're not the quickest in the world, maybe there are quicker players than you out in the pitch. Sometimes your brain can get you through it, and we should be privileged that we saw him.
Did you come across him a lot in your travels, Damien?
Oh yeah, he's a lovely fella. He's obviously playing against him when he's at Norwich. Very, very tricky player. But he's a gentleman, absolute gentleman. One of the truly nice fellas that you're going to meet. I got a lot of time for Wes.
finished Newcastle United 0, Cambridge United 1, Wes Hoolahan, they're into the fourth round of the FA Cup, and Newcastle with a full strength team are gone.
That's brilliant. Kieran Trippier is sitting there going, well, I mean, Madrid was grand, but this is the new life. But these are little moments that people can enjoy before Newcastle invariably
win the Premier League in 5 years' time.
Yeah, you know, this is the bump in the road. But I mean, enjoy it while you can. You know,
go Wes! You win the day, Wes Hoolahan. Damien, Johnny, thanks so much.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks, Dan. And we got to leave it there.
That was Johnny hanging up literally straight away because the phone box he's in, he's out of time.
In Kazakhstan, or we're in that hotel where Novak Djokovic is also at the moment. We got to leave it there, folks. Don't forget, Off the Ball back tomorrow from 1 until 7. A Nullig Naman special. Maura Trasney-Cali and Aisling O'Reilly, our presenters. Dr. Katie Leaston and Cleona Foley will join us for the paper review. So Katie Leaston and Cleona Foley for that. Also a backroom panel with Dr. Lisa Cunningham, Julie Davis and Anne-Marie Kennedy. We've got a brand new Coil Gig show. There's also a special Meath Ladies Football Chat with Maura O'Shaughnessy, Vicky Wall and Katie New. We'll showcase two of those chats, and be sure to join Maura Trassa and Aisling here on News Talk for some great commentaries and commentary of Nullig Naman. So if you missed any of our Saturday panel predicting the sporting year with Gary Murphy, Fiona Hayes and Pillar Caffrey, or any of OTB Football Saturday with Damien Delaney, Johnny Ward and Dan McDonnell, you can find the podcasts of our content on the OTB Sports app. Search OTB Sports in your app store now to download the app for iOS and Android, or listen back wherever you get your pods. The big story breaking this evening: Newcastle 0, Cambridge 1 in the FA Cup. The magic of the cup as we leave the show. Thanks so much for listening this afternoon, and we'll speak soon. Bye bye.